Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Holy Happy Hour. I'm your host, Josh, and today's episode was fully inspired by an interaction I had with someone recently. Someone that is going through so much, that is suffering so much. And sometimes, when we suffer a ton like that, we can think to ourselves, why is this happening? Do we have an all loving God? Why would an all loving God let this happen? Some may even think that we were destined to suffer. Some people are just destined to suffer, and some people are just destined not to. And I wanted to kind of dive into this because I was just doing a little research. And so if you guys see me looking down, just kind of looking at my notes, and I was kind of doing some research, like what the Catholic Church teaches about this, and there's obviously plenty of resources. There's Bible verses about it. There's stuff in the Catechism that talks about it. Plenty of stuff online as well. But I thought it would be great to kind of give my 2 cents, my own personal thoughts, since this episode's called Thoughts with Josh, but also kind of dive into some of the notes that I also found that I think break it down really well. So, the first thing when we think of suffering is that we need to think of it just in general that it's very complex. Then, obviously, no suffering, and you see a lot of atheists. I see Alex O'Connor mention a lot of times that if suffering was such a great thing, then the parents whose kid gets leukemia and dies, they should be super grateful that their son got leukemia and died because that brought them closer to God. And obviously, that's not what we're saying, but at the same time, there is like a grace that comes with it, and there is a greater good that can come out of all suffering. Now, in that specific case, something super extreme, there obviously it's such a touchy subject, and you wouldn't mention it to someone right then and there. Like, when my son passed away to leukemia, hey, don't worry about it. Like, there's a greater good that can come out of it. No, you would never mention that. But the first thing we just need to know is that it is super complex. Suffering is a mystery. And when I first think of suffering, because I was actually posed this question by a focus missionary of, like, why do you think suffering happens? And I was caught off guard. I was kind of fairly new Catholic. I didn't really know what to think of. I was kind of lost for what to say, and I sort of just passed it back to her, and I was like, I don't know, you tell me. And she had one of the most beautiful responses, but was that God can always bring a greater good. Like, why does He allow suffering to happen? Because a greater good can always come of it. And so, in thinking of suffering being so complex, I always try to remind myself of, like, there can be a greater good that comes out of this. But when I think about it, of like, why does it happen though? Like, why does He allow it to happen? I initially thought to myself, I mean, this wasn't part of God's original plan. So a lot of people actually like to use suffering and the terrible things that happen in this world as a an argument for God's non-existence. Like, He doesn't exist. If He did exist, then this terrible stuff wouldn't happen. But if you think about it, like, think back when He created Adam and Eve. Did He create Adam and Eve with all this terrible stuff in the world? It's like, no, it was just a perfect place. And it wasn't until they went against God and they fell into temptation that sin and evil and suffering and everything entered the world. So the first thing is, it's not part of God's original plan. With suffering as well, kind of part of the mystery of it is there's always like redemptive potential. Now, the note here that I found in this great article, it says suffering, however, can be a source of great spiritual growth and can be offered up for the good of others, uniting individuals with Christ's redemptive suffering. Now, I think of this every time, like, I'm going through like a tough stint at work, whether like I do fundraising for a living, and maybe like money's not coming in like we think, or like things are just really tough at the time. Like, I just try to offer it up for anyone else that is suffering with something, or maybe it's a specific sin I'm struggling with. I know in the past, when struggling with pornography, I was told that, you know what, the greatest thing you can do when you're struggling with something like that, struggling with a mortal sin, is obviously ask God for strength to overcome it, but pray for others. Offer it up for others that are also struggling with that. And I actually heard someone now. I don't know if this is true. Like I said, Thoughts with Josh is my. Sometimes when I tell these stories, you guys can tell me if the Catholic Church teaches something different. I'm never going to say anything that wild, but some people even say, like, when you pray for others to do better. Like, so if I'm struggling with pornography, and I pray to God and say, help all of those struggling with pornography to overcome this addiction, that the enemy is like even more like, oh shoot, I don't like that. And so you could be actually become less tempted to do that sin. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but I have taken on this practice and taken on this every time especially mortal sins, of dealing with it. I always offer it up. God, I help me with the strength to overcome this sin, and God, I offer up this suffering, this time of just desolation or isolation, and I offer it up for anyone else that is also struggling with this same sin. And that's something you guys can do too. And know that suffering is never meaningless. The best part about the best the best part about this life is that Jesus came and opened up the gates of heaven and made it to where so let me back up. He opened up the gates of heaven. He conquered evil, conquered death. That not even death can be something that holds us back. Like everything in this world, that sounded really weird to say it like that. But what am I trying to say here? So that when I say not meaningless, I mean everything we go through in this world, all the suffering can be used and should be used and is used to sanctify us. We struggle with some sin, we struggle with lust, we struggle with pride, and we work at it, and we use this as opportunities to grow in virtue, and we use it as times to grow closer to God, unite ourselves with Christ so that we can grow closer to God. I think of like the times when, like, I feel like when I ask God for prayers for patience, it's like, God, my kids are being so crazy. Please just give me patience. Give me patience to deal with them and to not be angry at them, that to know that they're young. Anytime I ask for patience, I feel like I'm given plenty of opportunities to practice patience. I'm not given peaceful kids. He doesn't give me peaceful kids. He gives me opportunities to grow in patience. So not necessarily saying if you pray for your kids, like they're all of a sudden be super crazy, but that is how life can work sometimes, that you come across things, you're asking God, help me with this. Take a time to step back to see that this suffering you're going through is not meaningless, that you are able to grow in virtue, and there's something being taught here, whether it's something super tragic like child loss or a loss of a spouse, loss of a parent. So like you're experiencing death. How can that scenario be used to sanctify you and help unite you with Christ and get you on the path to sainthood? Or it could be something a little minor. Maybe you're like telling little white lies all the time. You know, I used to I say used to. I still do it sometimes, and I shouldn't. And I go to confession forum, but sometimes I say little white lies to make myself look a little better. I don't want the person to think that I forgot about our meeting. So I'm like, oh hey, I'm just running a little late, but really like I forgot about it and like I'm on my way. And it's like usually like not a big deal, but I don't want them to like think badly of me. And so what can I do to grow in virtue? And as I'm suffering with this sin of pride and the suffering of lying, like how can I grow in virtue? How can I look at it as like, why am I doing this? What's the purpose of this? Because I know it's not meaningless. Like I need to find the root and then understand that this suffering is not meaningless and that I can use it to unite myself with Christ. Now, in the article, it goes into next about how to understand and respond to suffering. Now, before we even get into this section, I want to say that everyone deals with suffering. Everyone deals with sin. You can see the wealthy that have it all. They're traveling to other countries. They're just completely rich and just doing everything, buying everything. They have all the money in the world, all the money they could ever spend. Their kids don't ever have to work for the rest of their life because they're so wealthy. But you never know what they're going through. They could be struggling with loneliness. Maybe they threw themselves into work so much that they don't have that community, that friends. Maybe they threw themselves into work so much that they don't have a relationship with God. Like you just don't know what people are going through. We live in the world of social media where everybody posts the good things in their life. Nobody posts the bad things. Like, guys, I'm in the line for a confession, taking a selfie. Yeah, I did it again. Like I lied to my boss or whatever. Like no one's posting the bad things. Like, hey, me and the wife, we just got in a huge fight. How's your Tuesday night? Like no one's gonna post that stuff. And so we have this crutch of social media that causes us to really see everyone else. Like, man, if I was only like this person, or how dare this person say something because they don't even know what suffering is. So before we get into the how to understand and respond to suffering, really understand that Everybody goes through it. It's something we will all struggle with at some point, some way. Will others struggle with it more? Absolutely. There's going to be different variations of struggling. But I've always heard the saying that God will never give you something that you can't um, handle. And then I've heard like I think a more perfected version of that, which is God will never give you something that you and Him together can't handle. So anyway, we're going to get into understanding and responding, but I want to throw that out there because I know that that would be something in the comments section that would get like, who are you to even talk about suffering? So and like you don't know about my suffering. So unite with Christ. That's the very first thing, is to realize that Christ isn't throwing this at you and then off somewhere. You're not going through this because he's gone or he's a distant God. Like Christ is there. So the church encourages Catholics to unite their suffering with the suffering of Christ, offering it up in prayer and sacrifice. I never recommend anyone to downplay your suffering. So you lose a child, you lose your mom, you lose your spouse. You don't ever want to just look at the cross and be like, man, Jesus, you were beaten and you were hung on a cross even though you did nothing wrong. So who am I to complain about this? Don't ever downplay your suffering, but offer it up to Christ and realize that the reason Christ went through that suffering and that crucifixion was for you, like to unite himself with you. There is nothing that we can go through that was as bad as what Jesus went through. And we are definitely more deserving of what Jesus went through, but he took it on for us. So we want to unite ourselves with. There's a reason he did it that way. There's a reason he didn't like ascend into glory after like taking over and being king or whatever. Like he took it down to the lowest of the low levels and took on something that he did not deserve. So we want to unite ourselves with it. The next is trust in God. So Catholics are called to trust in God's plan and providence, even in the face of suffering, knowing that God's grace is sufficient. This has been something big for me in my prayer life. It's just understanding that God, you are enough. You are sufficient. And God, whatever happens with this scenario, whatever happens with this suffering, that I trust you and I trust your plan. If you guys read the lives of the saints, you will realize that this step they are so good at. Some of the people that just lived such hard lives where there's like living with the poor and living with nothing, going for multiple days without food. Well, whatever it was, they were some of the best at offering it up and trusting in God's plan. So it's verse 2, uniting with Christ and trusting in God's plan. I think of Padre Pio. You know, he had the stigmata, so he had the wounds of Christ. And it was crazy because he had like the holes in his hand. He got the scar on his side, the opening in his side. And they asked him one time what his most painful wound was. And you know what he said is he said the most painful wound is the wound on my shoulder. It's like the shoulder wound that no one can see. And it's from carrying the cross. And he was going through. I mean, even the ones you could see were painful, but he had the one from carrying the heavy cross as well. All this pain and suffering, but he trusted in God's plan and is now a great, great saint. The next one, this is great, especially if you're struggling with what I've said so far. And again, I'm not taking any credit for any of this. A lot of this either comes from Catholic Answers, a lot of it comes from the USCCB, stuff like that. But I'm not taking credit for any of this stuff. But if you have been listening to any of this and you're like, this isn't resonating with me, or maybe I've tried that and it doesn't work, this is when the next step, seek spiritual guidance. Priests, bishops, cardinals, whatever's in your area, obviously mainly like your parish priest, is the perfect person for you. This is what they're there for. Every priest should have time to sit down with you on a weekly basis, monthly basis. I know some of them are really busy. Most of them are really busy. But let them know what you're struggling with. Open up, be vulnerable with them, and tell them, I need spiritual guidance, Father, because I'm struggling with X, Y, Z, whatever you're struggling with, and they will make time for you. Another great thing you can do is embrace the sacraments. Sometimes I think when we go through suffering, it's obviously a very big time we can fall into sin. Sometimes just getting your soul cleansed, going in and utilizing the sacrament of reconciliation, going to confession, cleansing our souls, and just getting ready to start anew with God and put God back in the center. I think a lot of the times, too, the sacraments, going back to daily Mass and getting the Eucharist more often, like the more you can go back there, the better. But the more you can get your life back in order of where it is God, family, work. God, family, work. If you want to throw your friends in there, God, family, then, work and friends are kind of interchangeable because obviously we have to work to provide for our families. But, you want to make sure, though, God, family first. Is your life suffering because that's out of order? Is work first? I mean, that's for a lot of us. Work is first. And then you got maybe family comes after that. Maybe you really are a family man, but God's like your spiritual life's nowhere to be found. And then you're wondering why things are tough and things are rough, or you're having a hard time dealing with the suffering. So seeking spiritual guidance, though, going back to the sacraments, getting into your parish more for prayer, for the Eucharist is going to be something obviously very, very great. Something I mentioned a little earlier, and this is on the understanding and stuff you can do to respond, is, again, offering it up for others. So when you're going through something, again, saying that prayer, it's like, God, I'm sorry that I offended you. I'm sorry that I sinned. Sorry that I fell into the temptation of pornography again. God, give me the strength to overcome this sin. And God, help any others, especially those that are struggling to admit it. Help them overcome this sin as well. Give them the strength, give them the courage to get to reconciliation, cleanse their souls, and give them the strength to overcome this sin. Giving something like that, offering it up for others in your prayer time is going to be such a great way. And it kind of, again, reorders things. It gets you out of the prideful, selfish mindset of like, me, like the victim, the victim mentality of like, why is this happening to me and everything, and then offering it up for other people. I think the more you serve, the more you give to others, the more you do for others, the better your suffering becomes. The better your suffering becomes, the better your response to suffering comes. That's what I should say. Then the last couple are great. Well, one of them's learn from the saints. Learn from the saints is obviously great because you do have some that went through so much. And again, don't ever downplay yours. I don't want you to ever think that I'm saying read the lives of the saints, because then you'll realize you're not going through anything. That's definitely not what I'm saying. I don't want you to downplay what you're going through, because what you're going through is like most likely real. Like it's probably really hard. So learn from the saints. Learn from the saints. Some of the greatest, the people that were some of the greatest at responding to suffering. They went through some tragic stuff, and they knew how to do all this stuff. They were really, really great. We'll throw maybe some examples in the comments. So if you're watching this and you're like, I know of a saint that's perfect, comment below which saint you think is perfect, that is great at, or was great at dealing with suffering, and throw them in the comments section. And like I immediately think of like Saint Peter, who was also ordered to be crucified, and he told them like, that's fine, but crucify me upside down because I don't deserve to be crucified the same way as our Lord. Or was it St. Andrew, I believe, that was crucified on an X-shaped cross, and he was up there for like 3 days, and he just preached while he was up there. Like, these people went through some terrible stuff, but like reading some of the lives of the saints, especially the ones that have writings, like some of the more modern day saints or anyone that wrote books and stuff like that, great to get into the lives of the saints to understand how they dealt with suffering. And then last but not least, obviously, you want to focus on the eternal perspective. I think a lot of the times in this life, we get so caught up on the worldly pleasures. Like, my life is so terrible because I don't make as much money as my friends. I don't live in as big of a house. I don't drive a nice car. I don't get to go on vacations. I don't get to, or I don't have as many followers on social media. It's all worldly stuff. Half the time when we're dealing with suffering or we're dealing with certain vices, pride, gluttony, lust, all that kind of stuff, it stems from something worldly. And the best thing we can do is focus on the eternal perspective. I heard someone mention at one time that it's like to remind ourselves that we are on a pilgrimage. Like, we're on a pilgrimage. We're just passing by. And so they say, don't get too comfortable in this life. And obviously in the Bible, they say it a lot of times. I wish I was good like Carlo Broussard and I could just pull the verse out. I can't remember. I should have wrote it down. But where they say, where Jesus says that they had their reward on earth, and the other people that didn't have anything, their reward is in heaven. So reminding ourselves, like, everything in this world, it doesn't matter. You can't take it with you. We're just on a pilgrimage coming through this life, hoping to make it to our destination, which is heaven. And so just keeping that eternal perspective, that no matter what you're going through now, if you happen to die and be in good graces and make it to heaven, like, all of that, none of it is going to even matter. So I hope this was great. Um, this is something that, like, reading about it was super healing for me. This is something that I think 2 months ago I wouldn't have felt comfortable talking about because I myself didn't feel like I was dealing with suffering well. And it's something that, like, obviously I still strive to be better at dealing with suffering. I still strive to not complain as much and offer it up. I strive to uh, put my pride aside and put my envy aside, my anger aside, so I'm not taking it out on others, being jealous of others that seem to not be going through as much suffering. Because again, we are all suffering in this world. Humans, remember, this was not part of God's plan. Humans brought sin and evil and suffering into this world. But Jesus came and he's redeemed it all so that none of it can tear us down to the point that we can't be built back up. So why does God permit it to happen? Because a greater good can come out of it, and we can continue to sanctify ourselves and prepare ourselves to hopefully enter the gates by the grace of God, enter the gates of heaven and into His eternal glory. So you guys, I love you guys, especially if you made it this far. I love you specifically. If you made it this far into the video, I love you specifically. So comment below. I'd love you too if you made it this far. I'm just kidding. But thank you guys for watching, and make sure you hit that like and subscribe button because we are trying to hit 3,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and we would love to hear your guys' feedback too. You guys comment below if you thought this was a load of quack. Comment below if it helped you at all. Whatever it is, we want to hear from you guys because the more interactive you are, obviously, it helps us with the anti-Catholic algorithm on YouTube, but it also just supports the channel and it gives us a lot of affirmation that what we're doing is helping others. So if it helped you, we hope it did. We hope that you comment so we can pray for you, but then we can also praise God that it helped others. Because if it helped you, that's not because of me, that's because of what God is doing through me for my channel. And so anything good that happens to this channel is of God. And if I ever say anything bad, that's of me. That's of me. So you guys have a great night. We will see you next time. And we're going to be putting out more episodes soon. So be on the lookout and comment below if you have any other topics you would like me to kind of do some research on. Just like I said in the past, Catholic Answers, greatest place to go for Catholic answers. Mine is more Catholic questions. If you have Catholic questions, put them in my comment section, and I'll go to Catholic Answers, and I'll find the answers, and I'll do a video. So we'll hope to see you guys soon. Stay on the lookout. We got Jimmy Akins coming up. We got Father Leo, who is a chef on Iron Chef, and Beat Bobby Flay. He's going to be on the show soon, as well as Rachel Kalaki. So we're super excited for all these guests that are coming up in the near future. So make sure you hit that like, subscribe, and alert bell so you're alerted every time we upload a video. God bless, and we're praying for you.